welcome to another edition of Babes with Books. We are here with Shauna, Maya, and Leslie, and we are here to talk to you about hot summer nights.
Hot indeed.
It has been hot, and for many different reasons this month.
Hopefully you guys had a hot choice.
Yes, for hot summer nights, we are talking about erotica / romance / porn.
I don't know. We're talking about a hot book.
We're trying to figure out what that means, and we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to comment down below. Just a little disclaimer, what we talk about is really our opinions, so there's no right or wrong, and especially in all our research, I don't know what you guys found, but there's not a lot of great definitions of these things.
Yeah.
So.
And as another disclaimer, this is a hot summer nights discussion. So
yes.
Content might not necessarily be appropriate for those of younger
not
age.
PG.
No, I'm not good at
or for my mother.
with
We're
PG.
not really good at filtering ourselves.
No, I just wanted to give you a heads up this time. Usually we're pretty okay, but it might stray today before we know it.
All right, so to get us started, I thought, why don't we just let people know what book we brought for discussion, and then we can go from there. For me, I brought a book called Callback. It's by Katana Collins, and the reason I picked this book, this was hard for me. I had a super hard time finding a book that I felt confident in recommending. But it's written by an author that I love. So Katana Collins wrote Soul Stripper, another great series, came out in 2013. And it's a series. It's about a succubus that needs hot, passionate sex to survive. It's really kind of cool. Don't we all? And so she had a new one come out in April. I figured I'd give it a try. It's called Callback. And it's about an actress who is trying to survive in Hollywood, and she meets a guy, and I will say what it's all about for after. So, okay, what about you guys? What'd you bring, Maya?
I tried to find erotica that I could recommend, and I failed.
Maybe it's just not your thing?
No, I just don't know that I get what it means. I don't know, because I ended up feeling, yes, there were some that was definitely not my thing. I have to say I tried like 7 or 8 reads for this month's Babes with Books. And there was a couple that I tried like 3 or 4 pages of, and then there was a few that I read, and I was like, this really isn't quite erotic. So this is where I am struggling, and this is, I guess, part of the conversation we'll have this month, is what are you looking for in a book that's a sexy read? I would probably think that this book that I read is more in the romance genre. It was called The Kiss Quotient. It is a big book that is out this summer. It's by Helen Huang. And but I ended up, even though it is totally classified in romance, finding it quite hot and steamy, actually. So I don't know if it was the writing. I found the sex was very front forward. So for me, that speaks to erotica. Whereas like romance, I definitely think there's that happy story, love ending, and that also had this. So Kiss Quotient is what I read this month, and we can talk about it more.
Who was that one by?
Helen Huang.
Helen Huang.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's what I read.
What about you, Shauna? What do you have to bring for us today?
Well, you can't get this book anymore, unfortunately, but she has other books coming out. My good friend Lana Mackey.
You can get that at Pandora.
You can get this at Pandora, yes. Impossible to Hold. And there's gods having sex with people, which is awesome, and fantasy, paranormal, cool stuff. And you guys.
Really, that's the thing we want.
Well, yeah, exactly. I one-upped you guys a little bit, and I brought Lana herself in to come and chat about our.
Always got to one-up us.
You betcha.
I do not know the author of my book.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Who's here?
Sounds good. I
Some
can
new
see a
stuff.
hot cowboy from the back.
Hot cowboy.
Hot cowboy, definitely. I guess it's timely.
I need to look at it.
It's stampede-y.
It is stampedes, I know. I love, this is totally off topic. We live in the Alberta area, and there's a large stampede that happens in Calgary, and all of Alberta transforms. Like, regular clothing places like The Gap, who would not carry this in any other province, are filled with like gingham and jeans and I just don't understand.
At the Gap?
Oh yeah, I was at the mall last night. It was amazing. Every store was filled with like stampede wear. Sorry,
What they say,
the
save
cowboy.
Save a horse.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Cowboy.
I also just read a poll. Does any man look hotter in a cowboy hat? And the answer was yes. The overwhelming answer was that any man, if he puts on a cowboy hat, will look hot. I thought it was an interesting. I feel you should test it.
Depends on the cowboy hat.
Oh, it's just the hat, not the man. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, anyways, we're digressing as usual, but
I mean, we are talking about men in
A book
cowboy
that you
hats.
can get from Lana right now, and she'll tell us more about the upcoming ones.
That is this
That
one.
book
Yes,
is
it's on my
was
website.
formerly called Bareback for Cowboy. I'll let you
It
figure that
got
one out.
banned from Amazon because they deemed it erotica.
When you didn't want
instead of
that?
romance.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so you would put it in under romance.
I have put it in under romance, and then for whatever reason, they kind of put it in jail. They said it was either the cover or the content of the book. And it was still available, but I had to have a direct link to buy the book from there. So if you searched it, you wouldn't find it. It said you had to be 18 to purchase it.
Can you put erotica on Amazon?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
but you have to classify it
I
correctly.
guess it's not easy to find because I guess they want you to have that.
Erotica is not
Erotica.
easy to
It's not easy
find.
to find.
So maybe that's what we should start the conversation about. What's the difference between erotica and romance?
Well,
and
let's go
porn?
around the table. What's your difference?
Well, to me, romance is more. There's a lot less sex in it for sure, and it's not as described as much as it is in erotica.
Okay, so you're talking
But
like
erotica
a
is-
1-page or 2-page sex scene, whereas erotica they're like 5-10 pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
And very
I'll just
detailed.
save my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
But-
So I've had publishers tell me.
Oh yes.
that-
What do the publishers
yes.
say?
So the frequency of the sexual encounters is definitely an important part of that.
Okay.
What they do in those sexual moments is also really important.
Oh, so if it's like
Yes.
okay,
So it's really a frequency thing, and it's how it's described in those books. But
that makes sense to me. That's
you can
interesting.
still have a romance, erotic novel. It just, if you're having a romance, of course, there has to be that whole character development. You're still going to the plot.
Yeah.
You're still having, there's, that outcome that the characters are going to go through and then finally meet, that end point.
I
where
do
they're
feel
satisfied.
yeah.
But how they get there can deem to be erotica if that's what you choose it to be.
Well, yes, and I think that speaks to what makes a good erotica, which I think we should definitely also talk about. But Maya, what's your definition? Where do you find where are the lines for you?
I think the story, the plot, I feel actually, like erotica doesn't often have like the arc. It doesn't have like the beginning and the middle and the end and a bit of conflict in there. It really is about the sexual encounters for me, and sometimes there isn't really an end or a relationship. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think for me, romance, erotica, are both of them will depend on a story, whether they're good or not, right?
Yeah.
So you require a story for a good romance, you require a good story for a good erotica fiction novel. I think, again, frequency, but I think the way that the sex is described is different.
I didn't think about that.
So for like Diana Gabaldon, so I'm just gonna. Yeah. So when I was researching what to read, of course, you look at all these lists and what should we read?
This is all over the list.
This one often got put, like the Outlander series. This is not Outlander. This is the next one in the series, but the Outlander series often got put on the list of erotic fiction. And I was like, I have read those books, and they are not that erotic. And maybe that's because we're more desensitized, but
They are hot.
they are steamy because, I mean, Jamie.
Well, yeah, Jamie.
But
They're steamy, but you wait quite a ways in between the scenes.
yeah,
frequency.
and the
Not
descriptions
interesting.
are often he entered her,
Sure.
and that's like, and they were close.
For sure.
But sorry, someone in the audience just made a face, and it was funny. But
there's a whole lot more better ways to be descriptive than that.
whereas I find erotica will go in a little bit more detail. I think to be a good erotica, you still have to do that well. It's not about being crass. It's not about like the words you use necessarily. I think a good erotica will be very literary and a little bit underhanded in how it is described, but
and it's tough. I'll say this too from some of the editors that I work with, when you're describing those scenes, and because they're frequent in a proper story, you have to be careful because there's only so many words you can use, so you have to be creative with those words that you use. So
you can't just use the word flooded over and over again.
I'd be using Google
He's
a
so
lot.
hot. Like
you can't just
books.
use the word like
This book is well known for the same words over and over. It has other things and merits and whatever you want to say about it, but I will say, if you want repetitive sex scenes, this is the book to read.
Yeah, you have to be a little more
super repetitive.
A little more creative with your words when you're having those multiple scenes over and over again.
It's not just about being rock hard.
It's not about just being wet or rock hard or yes. I just came back from a conference in Reno, a writers' conference, and had taken a great session workshop with Damon Swade. And he broke us all in with our ears before we started that 2-day workshop and said, if there's any of you that are
don't like
offended,
the word.
Yeah, any of those and a lot worse, you should probably not be in my class.
Yeah, you might want to go now.
Yes.
Yeah. So what takes it from erotica to pornography?
Is there pornography books?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Like books? Like a book? Like I think of porn and I think of magazines and videos.
Well, again, I don't see pornography as being an actual, I guess, story, if I'm going to say it that way. Yeah. It's visual. It happens.
That's what I thought porn was visual.
It happens. There's not a...
What porn books are there?
Oh yeah, there's lists and lists of books. Actually, if you search, I think Goodreads has, and Amazon even has like a pornography section.
I was really let down by lists for erotica books. Yeah. I was very let down. So that's why I just went to something and I was like, well, this is hot, so I'll read this and be damned that it's on romance lists rather than erotica lists. Maybe is it the reader? Does the reader also determine things?
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's very subjective.
Yeah.
So for me, pornography, if you going into the realm of pornography, it's just like sex scene after sex scene after sex scene. There's no story to it. It's just, here's the sex that's happening, and there might be like a little segue in between. That's gonna go off. Thanks, Mom.
Sorry. I couldn't even listen to you. I was just like, sorry, everyone.
But there's like maybe a little segue in between, but it's just about the sex.
Right. I really, actually, I had not thought, and Lana, you said it first, and I think that, I think type of sex is definitely, because as I'm thinking now of like more romance genre books, like I'm not saying it's missionary every moment, but it's definitely like your good old regular like
stuff.
Yeah, right? Like you're not crossing, and I guess that's why 50 Shades was a massive game changer, because it introduced that BDSM. But as I was quickly talking to Leslie before this, and I was saying that's the part that really throws me with erotica, is to find an erotica book that isn't as focused on BDSM sex. It feels, I don't know, impossible to hold.
There you go.
That's
very good.
I found that kind of disheartening, because I mean I've read a few of them. I mean 50 Shades, and then there was another one. I think Secret is also. Is this also BDSM?
No.
The Underground Society? Oh no. It's the other one I'm thinking of.
Well,
the angel ones.
Sinners on Tour, I picked that up as to see what that was about as well, and I would say it was the BDSM or whatever, however you say it, as well.
BDSM. Yeah.
Well,
because it's all about the sex as well too. The whole series.
Yeah. And now speaking from the paranormal side of things, I just read a great. At the moment, she's my new hot author. Her name is Evangeline Anderson.
Okay.
She writes.
I need a pen.
Okay, it'll be online. Check YouTube.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She writes erotic alien romance.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't know what to think when I read that. I'm like, so what do you mean by aliens? Are there, I don't know.
I pictured
Extra
green men
pieces
right
anywhere?
away. I've read science fiction and
Yeah.
somehow I still pictured green men.
Yeah,
like,
where's
why?
my head going with all of that? But
Yeah.
it was, her books are
I was gonna say, have you
Yes,
seen
so-
Carl Troca?
her books are they're great. They're
I'm
very
thinking
hot.
Stargate, man.
They're very
Oh, you and your
spicy
Stargate.
for sure.
There are some hot
Spicy?
aliens on
Okay.
Stargate.
They're very, very hot and spicy and descriptive and
Oh.
and frequent.
Okay.
If you want to say that. So yeah, there's a new one for you to try.
I don't know that. Yeah. Okay.
Because when I wasn't sure what I was expecting. More so than not, the alien species called the kindred are very. I mean, they're normal. They look like normal men and women. Yeah, they have some different traits,
Okay.
special traits.
So let's
Special
hear more.
traits,
Let's hear
special
more about your
traits.
book that you're going to recommend.
Sure,
So
well-
if you guys are looking for a hot summer read, I think we all have. Like, we'll go through ours now and maybe give you a bit more. We've kind of talked about.
So
it,
actually, that's a good segue into mine because mine actually was a BDSM book, and it's not necessarily something. I mean, it doesn't matter what our preferences are. I guess we don't need to go into that. But
I knew that one.
Jason would probably prefer I don't. She won't look at him the same again. Anyway, so the interesting thing about my book was I've read 50 Shades. I didn't like it for the writing, whatever. I didn't necessarily hate all the sex scenes, but like you, I found it really hard to find something that was on an erotica list that wasn't BDSM. So I was like, well, whatever. I'll just read this one because I know the author's good. And this one I thought was a little bit different than what's out there now because it went a lot more into the relationship component of the BDSM. It wasn't about the sexual. In fact, the whole concept of this book was there was this actress that wanted a part in a BDSM film, and the co-actor wanted her for the part, but she was green. She didn't know anything about this lifestyle, and he did. So he was going to teach her about this lifestyle, but she was engaged, and so he wanted to teach her without. They weren't going to have sex at all. Now, she was engaged to a gay man because they were covering up for other reasons. But so she ends up falling in love with this man through the course of this week of learning.
This book is so much like my book. Sorry.
Yeah. So the whole week,
What a funny.
you're learning a
coincidence.
lot about just that lifestyle and what is more about the dominant submissive relationship rather than I'm going to tie you up and use a paddle on you. In fact, none of that happens until
And why?
really close to the end and maybe one or two scenes. And so
So then, how did you find it erotic without those scenes?
it was very,
Okay.
yeah. It was very.
Got it.
There was like different times where they went to a club, and so there was a time where they were sitting there, and it was the common room, and so she looks over and she sees one of the submissives giving one of the other dominants a blowjob. Now they don't describe that at all, but she has to go get a drink for her master. She's allowed a glass of water. She's like first night and she's like, I need a drink for this, and so she gets herself a drink instead. So then he has to punish her and he has to do it in front of everyone, so he spanks her just like really like carefully. And yeah, so there's like little things like that, and the way that they described it was very very interesting and creative. It wasn't just the 50 Shades of Grey regular old pronouns and nouns.
Okay. So you'd recommend this one?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
this
other
was great.
Katana Collins too.
Yeah.
You've liked others.
Yeah.
Oh, right on. Go.
She's great, and
Okay.
she's got lots out actually.
Cool. Okay. Like I said, I read a book called The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. It is just come out in the last couple of months, and the funny thing is it's so similar in a little bit of plot. It is about a young woman who is autistic, and she is feeling that at this point in her life she would like to have a relationship, but she's never managed to have sex. Well, she feels she's never managed to do it well, and so she feels that in order to have a successful relationship, she has to find someone to teach her how to have sex. And so that perhaps if she's good in bed, she will then be able to have a relationship. Because up till now, the autistic kind of parts of her personality overwhelm her when she's sleeping with someone, and so she cannot enjoy it. So she goes on and hires an escort. And yeah, she hires an escort, and then
Stuff happens.
I know. I'm really sorry, everyone. I got a little distracted there. She hires an escort, and the relationship continues from there. And so that's kind of the basic plot of this. So one of the reasons I picked this book up, and one of the reasons it's getting a lot of buzz, is because in this world and in this industry, or in this industry of writing, I guess diversity is really lacking in romance and erotica. And this had an article about it, interviewing the author. So I guess out of all of the romance that's published, and I don't know if you've ever walked into a bookstore or a library, but you'll know it's a large section, right? Like there's a lot out there. Only 7% are not white. Out of authors that are published within that genre. And so
You're right.
So I thought that was a really once I read that article, that's what caught my attention about this book. Just diversity is a big thing in publishing in general, and then in this genre where you're getting white on white quite frequently, I thought that was an interesting thing. So so that's something there that added a little bit of something to this book. I would classify it more as romance, but I did think that the erotic sections were well written and were hot and steamy. Good book. So I would recommend it to people if you're looking for something, along those lines. Great. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I want to introduce Lana and her new books that are coming out. One of the reasons why I like Lana's books and why I like books like The Secret versus that. Is for me it's about the passion, about it being a hot summer night, right? Like it's about that anticipation, that oh my gosh, I need to go find someone,
need to have a cold shower.
Need to have a cold shower. Right. It's about that stuff, and that's one of the reasons why I like Lana's writing and Marie Adelaide. So if Lana could tell us a little bit more about her books that are coming out soon, because I'm excited about them. So.
Sure. Well, I guess right now, currently I'll have one probably coming out in the next 3 weeks, I'm going to say, called The Gypsy Bride. I tend to write hot romance, love stories. For me, it's always going to be about love, a happy ever after, or that's how my books will always end, because I'm a sucker for love,
and that's why I love them.
And but they are very hot through that journey. So I do have The Gypsy Bride that's going to come out soon, and then right now I'm currently writing a series called Treasures of the Heart, and it actually takes place in the Yukon. And it's kind of like a Romancing the Stone type of series. So, and they are very hot, so super hot. So I'm just about 3/4 of the way done book 2 in that one. By the end of December, I will have 5 books.
And those are paranormal.
They're contemporary romances. So I guess for me in my writing career, I started off exploring, and I have always had a flair for paranormals, and then decided I was gonna give the contemporaries a try, which is kind of where I'm at now. So I will do both, but right now I'm focusing on the contemporary.
So what are the subgenres of like romance and erotica?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them, right? It's like,
well, I mean them all.
It's right. Well, I think I wrote a book called, which is actually probably my favorite still at the moment, minus the series I'm writing, called Winter Kill, which is a suspense, contemporary romance suspense.
Suspense is a big one. Yep.
And so I totally enjoyed writing that book. They're harder to do, I think. Everything
because you're trying to keep that romance. You're trying to keep that romantic feeling.
Suspense.
Yes.
Yeah, trying to keep that romantic feeling and add the suspense, and it's kind of hard to find. I measure them both.
Is that to try and get men to read those? Like, what
No,
would
it's for women who read mysteries.
No,
Yes, I know, but
They don't feel bad about
I'm
reading a
just
romance.
curious of
Right.
what percentage you guys feel men read erotic fiction versus women.
Wow, I'm super close-minded right now, but probably like 5%.
You think?
I don't know. It's too romancy. It's too romancy. There's not... Okay, just on this line, this is one of the most romantic books ever, in my opinion. Now, fine,
it's definitely
there's the Red Room, and there's some pain. Okay, this guy wants a life way over here, and then he meets a young girl, and he completely changes his life and his desires and his wants for this woman.
I agree.
Becomes completely what she wants.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, showering her with tons of money and expensive things because he is a millionaire and is handsome. Like, it's
Hot is the word.
beyond romancy. That is not this was not an erotic book for me. I've never thought that.
Interesting.
I thought it was hot as well, and truly, like, if you were to, some of my readers will say that this book is hot romance. Some will say it's not erotic, and then some will say, well, it is erotic. So I think
which
it
is why the
depends.
lists are all over the place,
It
and that's what I
is.
found super interesting about this whole topic in general, is that there are just so many different spectrums, and they all kind of intermingle and mix.
Yeah, it proved to be a rather like researchy topic for me. I thought I was just gonna grab.
I
a
did
book
more
and be...
research for this one than
Than
any
any-
other one.
I know.
Yeah.
I had to look and look and look.
Yeah.
I bought like 5 books.
Mhm.
Because like the other thing is you can't just go into a bookstore. I went into Chapters in West Edmonton Mall, so like a large bookstore, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna find this on my own. Couldn't find it on my own. So then I was like, okay, so where is your like self-help section? I thought it would be in the sexuality area. Nope, it wasn't in there. That was just more like the non-fiction-y. I'm like, okay, listen. And I actually had to be like, I couldn't even be like, yeah, I just want an erotic read. I was like, no, I'm doing some research and I need a book. Like, I was like, and she's like, oh yeah, it's over here. It was stuck like way in the top shelf of a book, and it took up 1/3 of the shelf. And there was nothing there that was published
That was
newer
helpful.
than 2015.
Interesting.
There was less than 20 books on the shelf, and I was like,
Why
well,
is that?
nope. Because I tried to find you guys something new. So, like, you haven't been there, done that with my recommendation kind of thing. And it was kind of weird and disheartening, actually.
Mhm.
Like, we say
All the
this
stuff
world
that I
has
was
been
finding
opened
was
up.
stuff that I was like, oh, that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good. So I'm glad to hear that there's some hot romances at least coming out.
Well, and
Yeah.
it is funny when you go back to, I think the men are curious. I think they're very curious. Even for some people who have read my books or their wives have shared pieces of that, they have a hard time looking me in the eye afterwards. But I think it's, I don't know if they're just...
We did have a
They're
guy tell us that there's a
not
big
gonna look,
Western
or-
erotic
Yes,
series.
I was going to read. Okay, so I was going to read a Western in order to bring it for this, but I couldn't. I tried. It was not interesting. Westerns are not my thing. But what I've been told is
It's a
that
few pages I
ultimately,
read,
sorry,
but oh my
I
God.
hate you. Sorry.
No, I didn't. I was looking at you. I'm interested.
Westerns are erotica or romance for men. They're just
So, like, Louis
smut
L'Amour
for men.
is smut for men. Are there sex scenes in Louis L'Amour?
I believe that there are
Sorry,
definitely.
I looked at the one man
I
that
don't
we know.
know.
I was
There's
like,
a man over there. That I keep looking at. You should see his face every time.
That
we
one
say something
example book, it
smutty.
sure was.
But it was
Those
that
few
written by
pages
a
that we
man?
read.
Yeah.
Are there
That's
male?
right. I was reading it out loud, and I was like, you were like, my kids are here.
No.
Yeah.
Are there male erotic writers?
I do feel like there's some
Or is it just porn?
cross-genre stories that bring the erotic or the romance into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think it should be in every book. even
Well,
if
and we
it's
have
just-
talked about
Right,
that
it's
before
a-
too, about how there's a relationship or
Yeah,
some kind of
it's
romance.
like you can bring cross erotica into fantasy books or into some of those different.
So
Westerns.
going back to what you were saying, Maya, about like going to Chapters and being a little embarrassed to ask the question.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So then I had to buy them
looking
all
at
in
covers.
ebooks.
So can I see secrets there for a second? So we have this cover,
Look at this one, though.
and we have this cover.
Wow, look at this one.
This is Maya Banks.
Alana's on there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you guys are reading erotic fiction,
I buy
Are
them
you
on Kobo,
like
so I don't have to show anyone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Or do
All
you
my
buy them
erotic
on
fiction is ebooks.
ebook?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that you don't like. Would you sit in public and read this, or
No.
would you really?
Oh,
I would.
I don't have a problem with that.
I would be like in the coffee shop going like this.
You would read this one too?
Oh, sure.
Totally.
I don't have any problem reading.
Are you kidding?
books,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, nope. Mine are all ebooks.
I'm
Yeah,
not
for
embarrassed.
sure. I do own this, and I do own this. I keep looking at this. I will say,
Claiming of Sleeping Beauty is what she's talking about.
yeah, I will say this is a trilogy. So there's a trilogy. Anne Rice, who writes Interview with a Vampire, also writes under other names and does a lot of erotica. I think this is published as, no, it's published as A.N. Rockler. But it's a trilogy, and it's retelling Sleeping Beauty from a BDSM standpoint. And it's older. It's from, like, I don't know, the 90s or something like that,
Yeah.
I think. Really interesting series. I liked it. I read it a number of years ago, so yeah. I have I do own another in print. It's a graphic novel by Neil Gaiman, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Graphic novel erotica.
Oh yeah, it's
So porn.
holy shit, it's intense.
So who reads
It is
these?
like
do
hidden in the back.
20-somethings
Well,
read these, or do only
Actually, I
30-somethings?
know someone too that reads like. There's a lot of manga out there that has
Oh,
what
yeah,
you
yeah.
call fan service.
Sure.
Fan service?
Fan service. Yeah.
What does that mean?
That's where you can see up their skirts and you see their panties and the curves of their lady bits while you're reading.
Oh, jeez.
And they're just stories.
It's a new term to me.
Yeah.
So there's nothing else but just the fan,
Fan
service.
service?
Oh well,
What the
no,
heck
it's
is
a
that?
story.
No, I
that
mean
has-
like there's no actual sex scenes. It's just the
Oh no, they
art.
would never do that.
It's just the
In
art.
fact, when a guy gets excited in a lot of these, their nosebleeds. That's
Their
they
nosebleeds?
pass out in their nosebleeds. That's the
Wow.
you expelled something from your body.
Well,
Oh Lord. Okay.
well,
And they're too polite to put it any other way.
oh, okay.
That's news to me. I did not know.
All right, there are ones out there that are definitely right.
Yeah.
That are
Fan
worse, and
service.
well, we won't go into that stuff tonight.
What a term! Like we're servicing our fans. Like
Gotcha
wow.
Gotcha is one that is very
Adult.
oh yeah. Yeah. Don't let your kids read that one.
Okay. I'm
Try
intrigued
that.
now.
We have it. I'll let you borrow it.
No. Well, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say anything because I just talked.
It's
about
not
my
mine.
bookshelves.
That tells you whose it is.
I don't know that we should have done this one.
Speaking of things that our husbands read,
Ah, yes.
Mhm.
So we decided that we thought we would, instead of just always picking our own books, we asked someone in our lives, a loved one, to choose our books for us. And I think in our three cases, Shauna, me, and Leslie, we've asked our significant others to choose a book that they think we should have read in our lives. That is worth reading. That is one of those ones that you just can't go through your life without reading. And that is what is going to be next month. And I do believe we're going to have guests as
super
well.
excited. Yes, the boys will be here
Yeah.
next
They're
month.
not happy.
They're not happy.
They're not happy. Mine isn't anyway.
He just
Yeah,
shook
I
his
can
head. No,
imagine.
we will convince.
They
him.
might be tied up.
Oh,
So that they
now
are
we're going
forced-
back
No.
into this.
I meant enforce. Apparently, if we have to force them to come on. No, but I think sometimes it's good. You get into I do know that I get into a rut of reading my own things. I do get into the idea of you get stuck and you just. So we wanted to see like what else is out there. What do we not necessarily look at when we see a shelf? Because I think if you look at a bookshelf, your eye is going to be drawn to one thing, and maybe your partner or your best friend or
And we wanted
your mom.
them to recommend something that they would recommend to you guys. So
Yeah.
they thought, what will you guys like? So I'm looking forward to it. Should be good. So that's
Sounds
next
very
month.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's next month. That
So-
is August.
August. Yes.
August.
So thank you, Lana, for coming in and chatting with us today, and thank you all for watching.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to interrupt you, Leslie. Where do we find your books, Lana?
You'll see them on my website when they're ready to go.
Okay. Okay.
What's
and
your
then
website?
They provide a link.
Yeah, there will be a link on my website where you.
Is it best? Can we just Google your name and your website should pop right up?
It's me, lanamaki.ca or
Okay, so
Right
lanamaki.ca. And
so if you want to read about some stilettos and spurs, definitely go to lanamaki.ca.
And thank you to Pandora's for hosting us here, and we'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Have a hot summer night.